Hi, a very good morning. I am Lakshmi Narayana Gutta, PGT in Zoology at APMS and Junior College Karavanja, and also working as NEET Super 60 Zoology faculty at Dupulvalsa, Srikakulam. Today in our session, we are going to continue the generation and conduction of nerve impulse, and in our previous segment, we have completed the different types of ion channels and also of the resting membrane potential. Now we are going to discuss the depolarization, repolarization, hyperpolarization, refractory pedia, etc. Okay. Before we start this segment, let us recap quickly what we have learned in our earlier segment. The ion channels, as we already have learned, there are four types: leakage channels, the ligand gated channels, the voltage gated channels, and the mechanically gated channels. Leakage channels, there are again two types: sodium leakage channels and potassium leakage channels. These leakage channels, they are present on the plasma lemma and they are the protein channels, and they always open in a resting neuron. And here you can observe a leakage channel which is closed, and this one an open leakage channel. And these leakage channels, again they are two types: sodium leakage channels and potassium leakage channels. Sodium leakage channels, they always allow sodium into the cytosol, whereas the potassium leakage channels, they allow the potassium to pass into the extracellular fluid from the cytosol. Okay, here you can observe this one is a potassium channel, and this potassium channel, it always allows the potassium to pass into the extracellular fluid, whereas this one is a sodium channel which allows the sodium from the extracellular fluid into the cytosol, okay, or the intracellular fluid. And coming to the next channel, that is the ligand gated channel. Ligand, these channels, they open or close to a chemical ligand, and these channels, they are present on the postsynaptic membrane. Here you can observe this one is a synapse and this one is the postsynaptic membrane, and these channels, they are present on the postsynaptic membrane. They open or close to the chemical ligands, particularly the neurotransmitters or hormones. This one is the acetylcholine. This acetylcholine, when it is released, this opens the ligand gated channels. Okay, these ligand gated channels, they open or close in response to a specific chemical stimulus, particularly a hormone or a neurotransmitter. As they are opened or closed to a chemical stimulus, they are also called as chemically gated channels. Okay, the chemical ligands are neurotransmitters. This one is acetylcholine. This one is the ACH binding site, the neurotransmitter binding site. Whenever the neurotransmitters, they are released at the synapse, these neurotransmitter binding site, they receive these neurotransmitters, and thereby the channel is opened, and thereby allowing the ions to pass through it. Okay, and the third type of channels are voltage gated channels. They are again present on the axolemma, and these channels, they open or close to any potential change. Here you can observe this is a sodium voltage gated channel which is opened to any potential change. Here whenever there is a change in the potential, these channels, they open. Okay, these are the most important channels in generating and conducting a nerve impulse. Okay, again these voltage gated channels, they are further divided into two types based on the ion that is allowed through them. They are the voltage gated sodium channels and the voltage gated potassium channels. Always remember that these voltage gated sodium channels, they always allow sodium from the extracellular fluid into the exoplasm, whereas these voltage gated potassium channels, they always allow the potassium from the cytosol into the extracellular fluid, but not vice versa. These voltage gated sodium channels, they have both activation and inactivation gates. Here you can observe these are activation and inactivation gates, whereas these voltage gated potassium channels, they have only activation gates, they don't have inactivation gates. Here you can observe the activation gate. And these potassium channels, they always allow the potassium ions to pass from the cytosol into the extracellular fluid. And coming to the next type of channel, mechanically gated channel. They are again present on the axolemma and they open or close to a mechanical stimulus. It may be in the form of a vibration, pressure, touch, or it may be in the form of a stretch, etc. These mechanically gated channels, they may be seen in the auditory receptors present in the ear, or the thermoreceptors or thigmoreceptors, touch receptors present in the skin. Okay, here you can observe this mechanically gated channel, it is closed, and whenever a mechanical stimulus is given, means pressure or whatever it may be, it is given, then the mechanically gated channel is opened, allowing the ions to pass through it. Okay, and coming to the resting membrane potential, what we have discussed in our earlier segment, axons, whenever under resting stage, then we can observe the electronegativity inside the axoplasm, whereas electropositivity outside the axoplasm. Whenever a nerve fiber is under resting condition, as there is difference in potential, this difference in potential, it develops a membrane potential. This membrane potential is called as resting membrane potential or the transmembrane potential, which ranges between -40 to -90 millivolts, and the typical value of resting membrane potential or transmembrane potential is -70 millivolts. This minus indicates the inside negative charge, okay, always there exists negative charge in a resting membrane. This minus indicates the inside negative charge and outside positive charge. This one is the axolemma and this one is the axoplasm. And what are the factors those contribute this resting membrane potential? There are three major factors which contribute this resting membrane potential. They are the unequal distribution of ions in extracellular fluid and intracellular fluid, and inability of most of the ions to leave the cell is the second factor that contributes the resting membrane potential. And the third factor that contributes the resting membrane potential is electrogenic nature of sodium potassium pumps. Let us discuss all these in detail. What are the factors that are contributing the resting membrane potential? The first one is unequal distribution of ions in extracellular fluid and intracellular fluid. The sodium and chloride ions, they are predominant in extracellular fluid when compared with ICF. Sodium is 10% more in the extracellular fluid when compared with intracellular fluid or the cytosol. Whereas potassium, the main cation which is present in the cytosol, it predominates the cytosol. Potassium is 25 times more in cytosol than the ECF. Okay, and this unequal distribution of ions, it creates a potential difference. And moreover, many amino acids, they are predominant in the cytosol. That's why inside there is always negative charge. And the axolemma, it is more permeable to potassium ions than to sodium ions, because the axolemma, it consists of more number of potassium channels when compared with sodium channels. That's why more number of potassium ions leave the nerve fiber faster than the sodium ions that enter into the cytosol. Okay, this one is a potassium leakage channel and this one is a sodium leakage channel. When compared with these potassium channels, these sodium channels, they are lesser in number. Okay, that's why the axolemma is said to be more permeable to potassium ions than to sodium ions. Okay, as more and more positive ions exit, inside becomes more electronegative when compared with outside. Here you can observe inside it is electronegative, outside it is electropositive in a resting membrane. This is one factor for the resting membrane potential. And the second factor is the inability of most of the ions to leave the cell. Most anions inside the cell are not free to leave. For example, phosphate ions, they are present inside the cytosol in the form of ATP, adenosine triphosphate. These phosphate ions, they may not leave the cytoplasm as they are more in number. Inside is negatively charged. Okay, and the third factor that influences the transmembrane potential is the electrogenic nature of sodium and potassium pumps. As I already have discussed, membrane permeability of sodium ions is very low as there are only few leakage channels, and membrane permeability of potassium is very high as there are more number of potassium channels. Okay, as a result, the small intake of inward movement of sodium ions and outward movement of potassium ions is checked by these sodium potassium pumps. Okay, means these pumps remove more positive charges from the cell than they bring into the cell. They are called as electrogenic. That means they bring in less number of positive charges and they carry more number of positive charges towards the extracellular fluid. That's why this membrane potential, resting membrane potential is maintained. Okay, as a result there exists negative charge inside and positive charge outside. That's why this membrane is called as polarized. This is a polarized state and the resting membrane potential is minus 70 millivolts. Okay, whenever an axon hillock, it generates action potential. This action potential is conducted all through this axon. It ends with the release of neurotransmitters, and the next step in conduction of this action potential is depolarization. What is depolarization? Until then, the nerve fiber is under the polarization state. What is depolarization? Means this polarization is disturbed. Whenever the axon hillock, it generates action potential. The change in the potential, it promotes the voltage gated sodium channels to open. Okay, as a result of this potential change, these voltage gated sodium channels, they are opened. As a result, the sodium ions which are present in the extracellular fluid, they are forced to enter inside the cytosol, and this sodium influx, it reduces the negativity inside the exoplasm. As a result, the negative membrane potential, it becomes less negative. It is represented in a graphical manner. This 70, it is the resting membrane potential when the nerve fiber is under resting condition. When the axon hillock, it generates the action potential, and as a result the sodium influx is observed. As a result, inside negativity is gradually decreased. When it comes to minus 55 millivolts, which is called as the threshold potential, then actually the nerve impulse is conducted. Automatically the sodium influx, it continues. As a result, inside its negativity, it gradually reaches 0 and later it becomes positive. It reaches up to a peak level, that is plus 40 millivolts, and this is called as a rising phase. A rising phase. This during depolarization, the inside negativity, it gradually decreases. It reaches to 0 and finally it increases to plus 40 millivolts. This is called as a rising phase. It is observed during the depolarization. Here on the x-axis we have taken the time in milliseconds, and whereas in y-axis we have taken the voltage of the membrane. Okay, and let me show in detail what happens during depolarization. Here you can observe, as a result of a potential change, the voltage gated sodium channels, they are opened, both the gates, that is the activation and inactivation gates. As a result, sodium influx is observed. Sodium, it enters into the exoplasm. Okay, this is called as influx, sodium influx. And what happens then? The inside, you can observe here, inside it became positive charge, outside it is negatively charged. Means inside there is electropositivity, outside the axolemma there is electronegativity, and this stage is called as depolarization. At resting stage, the axolemma is said to be polarized, and this polarization is disturbed and it is now called as depolarization. As a result, the nerve impulse is conducted forward. In this segment, we can observe inside there is positive charge, and in the next segment there is negative charge, because it is under resting state. It is under resting state. That is, it is polarized. It is in polarized state. But actually here it is positive charge and here it is negatively charged. Means what happens? This negative charge, it attracts the positive charge. Automatically, these sodium ions, they pass here. And actually the thing happens, which is called as the repolarization. What do you observe under repolarization? These activation gates of the sodium channel, they remain open. But the inactivation gates of the voltage gated sodium channels, they are closed. As a result, the influx of sodium ions is stopped. Then what happens? The voltage gated potassium channels, they open slowly. As a result, the potassium, it moves out from these voltage gated potassium channels. That means the efflux of potassium is seen. Previously, when the voltage gated sodium channels, they are open, we observed influx of sodium ions. Now we are observing efflux of potassium ions. Automatically the inside positive charge is gradually decreased, even it is decreased to minus 70 millivolts, which is called as a falling phase. Depolarization is a rising phase, repolarization is a falling phase. During falling phase, what happens? Inside again it is developed negative charge, outside it is again positive charge. But here we have to observe, inside positivity is developed by the sodium ions, whereas the outside positivity in this falling phase is because of potassium ions, but not the sodium ions. Once again I repeat, during this rising phase, inside the electropositivity is developed by the sodium ions, whereas during falling phase, which is also called as the repolarization, outside positivity is developed, inside it again becomes electronegative. The outside positivity is developed only because of the efflux of the potassium ions, but not sodium ions. You have to keep in mind. Okay. During repolarization, what happens? The potassium gated channels, they open. As a result, the potassium efflux is observed. Means the potassium ions, they move out. As a result, inside again it is negatively charged, outside it is positively charged. This depolarization is shifted to the next segment, and here we can observe repolarization. This outside electropositivity is because of the efflux of potassium ions, and this nerve impulse is conducted to the next segment, and similarly to the next segment. Okay, when this segment it is repolarized, what happens? Voltage gated potassium channels, they have to be closed by obtaining the resting membrane potential, that is minus 70 millivolts. But what happens? These potassium gated channels, as they open slowly and they also close slowly. That's why these gates, they are called as lazy gates. Whenever electrical impulse is received, immediately the voltage gated sodium channels, they open, but these voltage gated potassium channels, they open slowly. As a result, we have observed influx of sodium ions. But when the voltage gated sodium channels, they get closed, then these voltage gated potassium channels, they open, thereby the potassium, they move out. As a result, inside again it is negatively charged. But by the time inside there is minus 70 millivolts, then these voltage gated potassium channels, they have to be closed. But it is not happening actually. As a result, there is more and more potassium ions, they move through these voltage gated potassium channels. As a result, inside more and more negativity is observed. This is called as hyperpolarization. It reaches up to minus 90 millivolts. Here you can clearly observe in the graph. Okay, voltage gated potassium channels, as they are not closed, as they are lazy gates, they are not closed. That's why it reaches even minus 90 millivolts. This is called as the hyperpolarization. After this hyperpolarization, as the voltage gated potassium channels, they are closed, then again the inside minus 70 millivolts is observed, and thereby again polarization is observed. Again the polarization phase is observed. At this stage, what we observe? Inside negativity is developed because of the efflux of potassium ions, but the sodium ions also there inside the exoplasm. Okay, and as a result, if there is another action potential is generated, but the nerve, it won't respond. This is called as refractory period. Refractory period. And this uneven distribution of sodium and potassium is corrected by sodium potassium pump. Pump means it needs some energy. The ATP energy is utilized and thereby sodium potassium pump is activated. As a result, 3 sodium ions are sent out in exchange to 2 potassium ions which come in. Okay, and this refractory period is said to be the period of time after an action potential begins, during which an excitable cell, it cannot generate another action potential in response to a threshold stimulus. In response to a normal threshold stimulus is called as refractory period. Means during this period, even though there is threshold stimulus, the nerve impulse is not conducted. And this refractory period, it is again of two types: absolute refractory period and relative refractory period. During this absolute refractory period, even though there is high threshold stimulus, but the nerve, it won't respond. That is called as absolute refractory period. Whereas relative refractory period means if the nerve fiber is given higher stimulus than the normal threshold stimulus, it will be responded, it will be conducted. That is relative refractory period, and this finishes the generation and conduction of nerve fiber. Thank you for watching, and follow me on YouTube simply by typing Lakshmi Narayana Gunta. Thank you.